Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are digging into a story about how one single viral video, a video based on some pretty shaky evidence, mind you, managed to spark a nationwide crisis. It really exposed a whole new kind of political playbook, and it all kicked off with one just wild claim. So, in late December 2025, you have this 23-year-old YouTuber, Nick Shirley, who drops that bombshell of a quote. And just like that, the internet just catches fire. His main target? He's zeroed in on daycare centers in Minnesota, and more specifically, ones run by the Somali American community. And when I say it caught fire, I mean it. Check this out. Over 100 million views. That's how many times people watched his video on X, and this was in just a matter of days. A local story just exploded into a full-blown national crisis. Okay, so let's get into it. What exactly was in this 43-minute video? What were the claims that got everyone talking? Well, the video laid out this really damning case, right? Shirley was showing footage of what he called ghost facilities, places that just looked totally empty. He'd even pointed things like a misspelled sign as, proof that these places weren't legitimate. And the big number he threw out there? Over $100 million in stolen taxpayer money. And the whole thing, the entire investigation, was laser-focused on Minnesota's Somali American community. But here's where the story takes a turn. This wasn't just some YouTuber stumbling onto a story. Oh no. It became pretty clear pretty fast that this whole thing was more like a coordinated political attack. And there were some really powerful people pulling the strings right from the beginning. And how do we know that? Well, because Minnesota House Republican staff actually admitted it. They admitted they worked with Shirley, feeding him information, giving him leads for his video. Turns out this was all part of a strategy to go after Minnesota's governor, Tim Walz, who's a pretty big name in the Democratic Party. The whole idea was to make his administration look either completely incompetent or maybe even like they were in on it. And what you get is this, well, it's like a perfect feedback loop. A really powerful one. You've got the political folks providing the ammo, the influencer, in this case Shirley, creates the super dramatic, shareable content, and then bam, high-level officials jump in, hold up the video as proof, which then gives them the cover they need to take action. And I mean, we're talking the highest levels of government. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, comes out and says this. Think about what that does. It's not just a nice pat on the back. It's a strategic move to basically say, hey, this YouTuber is more trustworthy, more of a real journalist than all those Pulitzer winners. It's an attempt to completely reframe who you should trust. Then, right on cue, the FBI director gets involved. He calls it the tip of a very large iceberg and immediately says he's sending a whole bunch of agents and resources to Minnesota. So just like that, what started as a YouTuber's video, some online speculation, is now an official, massive federal investigation. It's a national security thing now. Okay, so you've got this insane political momentum, right? The federal government is all in. But what about the claims themselves? When you actually start to fact-check this stuff, how does it all stack up against, reality? All right, this is a big one. The whole idea of ghost centers was the core of his video, right? Well, it turns out state regulators had already done surprise, unannounced inspections at all 10 of the places he featured. And guess what? They found kids there, at every single one. The official records completely contradict the main point of the video. And the evidence he showed, the empty parking lots and dark rooms, that started to fall apart pretty quick too. For example, one of the centers he filmed just wasn't open yet. Their hours were 2 to 10 p.m. And in another case, and you can't make this up, the daycare's own security cameras showed kids showing up on the exact same day Shirley was there filming and claiming it was empty. It just didn't hold water. So you can imagine how the people who were targeted felt. They were convinced this was never really about finding fraud. It was about painting their entire community with the same brush. And this quote from one of the daycare managers, Ibrahim Ali, really just says it all, doesn't it? Okay, and what about that massive $100 million number? This is maybe the most misleading part of the whole thing. The way he got that number was, well, he just added up all the legitimate government payments these daycares had received over a few years. He took their total revenue and just called all of it fraud. It's like looking at a company's total sales and calling it all theft. It just makes no sense. So the evidence was flimsy, right? It was falling apart. But that didn't matter. The real-world consequences, the fallout from this was immediate, it was huge, and it was devastating. I mean, just look at how fast this happened. The video goes viral on December 26th. That same day, the feds freeze all federal childcare funding for the entire state of Minnesota. And then, just 5 days later, we're talking New Year's Eve, they expand that freeze to all 50 states. All because of one YouTube video. And it wasn't just childcare money either. The Small Business Administration also jumped in and hit the brakes on hundreds of millions of dollars in PPP loans for Minnesota businesses. It really starts to look less like a targeted investigation and more like they were just trying to punish the entire state. And of course, the consequences weren't just financial. This is the really ugly part. The video unleashed this wave of hate and suspicion. You started hearing reports of harassment, people getting threatening phone calls, even vandalism against Somali-owned businesses, not just in Minnesota, but all over the country. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, what are we really seeing here? This wasn't just some random video that happened to go viral. A lot of analysts are pointing out that this whole episode follows a very specific and, honestly, very repeatable playbook for modern propaganda. And it's a playbook that is scarily effective. Here's how it works. First, you find a minority group to scapegoat. You tap into existing fears and prejudices. Then, you use a so-called citizen journalist to make your political attack look like it's a grassroots, authentic thing. While you're doing that, you're constantly attacking institutions like the mainstream media so you can control the story. And the final step? You manufacture a crisis, a sense of emergency that gives you the perfect excuse to take extreme action. You know, this whole story is just a powerful and kind of terrifying reminder that a good story, a powerful narrative, can have massive real-world consequences, whether it's based on facts or not. And it really leaves you with one big question to think about. Whenever you see a story like this blow up online, you have to ask yourself, who is actually benefiting from all the outrage?